Hello students, welcome. Yes, I have something to tell about ice creams. Do you know, as doctors, we suggest our patients like this? Please eat more and more ice creams. There is a condition, we suggest this to our patients. This is usually after tonsillectomy, after surgical removal of tonsils. Why do we suggest so? Let us look at in the class. In today's session, we are looking at palatine tonsil and muscles of pharynx. Learning objectives for today's session are quick revision of interior of pharynx with emphasis on oropharynx. I will be explaining palatine tonsil in detail. I will be enumerating the muscles of pharynx and the muscles of pharynx in detail discussion. And I will be enlisting related clinical anatomical aspects. Let me briefly explain the interior of pharynx in this slide. We can observe nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx shown in different colors respectively here. Nasopharynx is just below the base of the skull. It communicates anteriorly to nasal cavity, inferiorly to oropharynx. And in its lateral wall it has eustachian tube opening around which we have elevated mass of tissue, lymphoid tissue, that is mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. This is tubal tonsil. Oropharynx, anteriorly it communicates to oral cavity, superiorly and inferiorly it communicates to nasopharynx and laryngopharynx. In its lateral wall here we find palatine tonsil. At the base of the tongue we have collection of lymphoid aggregation. This is lingual tonsil. This is unpaired. Just like that, in the roof of the nasopharynx we have pharyngeal tonsil. This is also unpaired. There are two paired mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. This is tubal tonsil and palatine tonsil. All these constitute in the form of ring. They are known as Walde's ring. Palatine tonsil is part of mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. We can call it as MALT. So it has two components, gut associated and bronchus associated. The gut begins from oral cavity. The respiratory system begins from nasal cavity. At the root or base of the nasal cavity or at the posterior end of the oral cavity, we have this aggregation of lymphoid tissue very much near to the mucosa. We call it Walde's ring. So these are the components. Again, I repeat, pharyngeal tonsil and lingual tonsil, these are unpaired. Tubal tonsil and palatine tonsil, these are paired. Respiratory system and gastrointestinal system, they take air and food through nasal cavity and oral cavity. These are the most common ways through which antigens enter the body. To tackle those antigens, at these sites, the sampling happens. The antigen is sampled so that corresponding antibodies are produced. Let us look at palatine tonsil in detail under these headings. Let me comment on its location, its external features. Then I shall be explaining about the relations of the palatine tonsil, and I will be outlining the nervous supply and vascular supply and also lymphatic drainage of palatine tonsil, and finally related clinical applied aspects. In this diagram, you can see oral cavity from anterior aspect. This is oropharyngeal isthmus, or the door between oral cavity and oropharynx. We can see here there is an arch from palate to base of the tongue. This is palatoglossal fold, and behind there is one more arch running from palate to pharynx. That is palatopharyngeal arch. So between those two arches we can find palatine tonsil here. Let me explain it with construction. So this is palatoglossal arch, which is the a limit between the oral cavity and oropharynx. Behind that, we are observing here palatopharyngeal arch. So these arches are produced by underlying muscles of the same name. And in between these two folds on either sides, we find palatine tonsil. Palatine tonsil is most active mucosa associated lymphoid tissue because of its location. It is located in the fossa between these two arches, and the contents or the food material which gets collected here serves as best for sampling antigens. The palatine tonsil has upper pole and lower pole. It has medial surface which is seen here exposed to the oropharynx. Upper pole is near the soft palate. Lower pole is near the base of the tongue. Lateral surface is related to the wall of the pharynx. It has anterior border and posterior border related to corresponding arches. This is superior view to show the location of palatine tonsil. It is here. Anteriorly, palatoglossal arch; posteriorly, palatopharyngeal arch; inferiorly, it is related to base of the tongue. Let us collectively see all the relations of palatine tonsil in detail. This picture shows transverse section at the level of palatine tonsil. Anterior relations of palatine tonsil is palatoglossal fold with palatoglossus muscle in it. Posterior relation of palatine tonsil is palatopharyngeal arch with palatopharyngeus muscle in it. Medial relation is it's open to oropharynx. It has nearly 12 to 14 crypts like this, which are extending into the mass of the palatine tonsil. So this will increase the surface area of palatine tonsil. The surface is lined by stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, just like oral cavity. The lateral relations here, on the lateral aspect of the palatine tonsil, it is having capsule. The connective tissue is fibrous. It covers it like a capsule. So we can say palatine tonsil is hemicapsulated. Only on its lateral side it is capsulated, but not on the medial side, because it has to reach the antigens which are present in the food, or food materials which are bringing the antigen have to be presented to the underlying lymphocyte aggregation which are happening here within the mass of palatine tonsil. And lateral to the capsule, we find peritonsillar space. This is filled by loose areolar tissue. Within this space, we find a vein. We call it peritonsillar vein. This is usually palatine vein, which is draining venous drainage from palate. Lateral to this, we find pharyngobasilar fascia inside and buccopharyngeal fascia outside, and they are covering the superior constrictor muscle. This is muscle of the pharynx. We are looking at this muscle in detail further. Just to look at the lateral relations of palatine tonsil much more in detail, look at this picture. This is coronal section where we can see the roof, soft palate, and this is floor or base for the palatine tonsil, and this is anterior palatoglossal fold, and this is posterior palatopharyngeal fold. This is medial surface, this is lateral surface, and we are appreciating here the paratonsillar vein or palatine vein. Buccopharyngeal fascia, uh, pharyngobasilar fascia, superior constrictor muscle, and much more outside, we also find facial artery, styloglossus muscle, submandibular salivary gland, and ramus of the mandible. Inside to the ramus, we find medial pterygoid, and outside to the ramus, we find masseter. All these are in detailed explanation for relations of palatine tonsil. And superior relations of palatine tonsil is soft palate. Inferior relation is base of the tongue. This picture shows palatine tonsil in place and related blood vessels which are approaching it. This is common carotid artery. This is external carotid artery. and their branches. This is internal carotid artery. The branches of external carotid artery to name, this is lingual artery. We can see its branches are supplying the palatine tonsil. This is facial artery. The branches of facial artery are also supplying palatine tonsil. Among them there is ascending palatine artery. This is branch of facial artery, and ascending pharyngeal artery. This is also one of the branch of external carotid artery. This is also supplying palatine tonsil from one of its branch, and this is maxillary artery and superficial temporal artery. This is terminal branch of external carotid artery. The descending branches from maxillary artery are also supplying palatine tonsil. To collectively name again, the branches of external carotid artery, lingual, facial, ascending pharyngeal and maxillary, all these are supplying palatine tonsil. The venous drainage is peritonsillar vein, which is on the lateral aspect of palatine tonsil. We have seen it getting related to palatine tonsil at its bed. The nerve supply is glossopharyngeal nerve, which is sensory on the oral surface of palatine tonsil. The lymphatic drainage of palatine tonsil is upper deep cervical lymph nodes. They are also known as jugulodigastric lymph nodes. So here we can appreciate this one, that is at the angle of the mandible. This is the one which is also known as tonsillar or jugulodigastric lymph nodes. These lymph nodes are usually enlarged in infection of tonsil. So to tell you some of the applied aspects, tonsillitis, this is inflammation of tonsils. So we can see both arches containing tonsil here, which is appearing to be swollen, which with some cheesy material which are packing the crypts of the palatine tonsil. So patient will present with painful swallowing, and this cheesy material is because of exudates or WBCs or pus formation and debris. There is a condition known as quinsy. Here the abscess formation is seen in the peritonsillar space. The loose areolar space we have seen in the relation. There the abscess is collected. The tonsil appears to be more swollen, and here really the patient finds difficulty in speaking. The patient will speak as if he is holding some hot potato in his mouth. You just hold hot potato in your mouth and try to speak. Yes, this is how the patient will try to speak in quinsy. Tonsillectomy is a surgical procedure where palatine tonsils are removed on either sides. Usually the plane of resection is through peritonsillar space. In this space, we know that there is a vein present, palatine vein or peritonsillar vein. This usually bleeds a lot. This area is difficult to achieve blood clotting. There are two sites in human body which are very difficult to attain for clotting of blood. One is tonsillar bed, one more is uterine endometrium after delivery. Usually to attain hemostasis, patient is advised to eat lots of ice creams. The temperature, lowest temperature which touches the oropharyngeal part of this resected part of the palatine tonsil, where it brings about vasoconstriction and causes less bleeding. This is the idea why doctors advise more and more cold eats or ice creams. Let me enumerate muscles of pharynx. There are two groups of muscles. One is constrictors, other is longitudinal muscles. Among constrictors, there are three pairs on either sides: superior, middle and inferior constrictors. These muscles run circularly or horizontally to the long axis of pharynx. Longitudinal muscles are stylopharyngeus, palatopharyngeus and salpingopharyngeus. The names are suggesting from where they are coming to pharynx. The first one is coming from styloid process, the second one is from soft palate, and third one is from eustachian tube. The meaning of salpinx is tube. These muscles run longitudinal to the long axis of pharynx. Let us virtually dissect how pharynx is located deep inside. This picture shows jaw. This is angle of the mandible. This is head of the mandible, coronoid process, body of the mandible, chin. This is mastoid process, muscle sternocleidomastoid. We are observing posterior triangle here and anterior triangle here. So let us remove sternocleidomastoid first. This picture shows after removal of sternocleidomastoid. So this is connective tissue fascia with carotid sheath and its content. We are removing now this as well. Here we are observing pre and paravertebral muscles. Vertebral column are deep inside in this region. These are the cartilages of the larynx. This is anterior belly of the digastric and this is posterior belly of the digastric going towards mastoid process. In the next picture, we are looking at that view where vertebral column, all the paravertebral muscles have been removed. This picture shows after removal of pre and paravertebral muscles and vertebral column, we are observing pharynx from the side. We are also observing posterior belly of digastric. This is anterior belly of digastric. Let us observe pharynx from behind. This is pharynx seen from behind. We can see both angles of the mandible here and here. This is posterior belly of digastric. And all these are muscles of the pharynx covered by buccopharyngeal fascia on its outer aspect. Here we can observe pharynx is in the form of funnel shaped, broad above and narrow below. We can also observe here the pharynx extending till the base of the skull. This is posterolateral aspect of pharynx seen from behind. We can observe after removal of the posterior belly of digastric, this is styloid process and these are the muscles going from styloid process. This is stylopharyngeus going into the pharynx. This is stylohyoid going towards hyoid bone and this is styloglossus going to tongue. Pharynx is a fibromuscular tube. It is like a funnel. It is broad above and narrow below. The whole of the wall of the funnel is not complete. Anteriorly, the wall is broken. It communicates anteriorly to nasal cavity at this region and oral cavity, and here it communicates anteriorly to laryngeal cavity. So these three are different parts of pharynx from internal side: nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. When we look at the pharyngeal wall, it has four layers. They are mucous membrane on the innermost aspect, pharyngobasilar fascia, and muscular coat, which is chiefly formed by the muscles of the pharynx, and finally buccopharyngeal fascia. The outermost, what we are observing here is buccopharyngeal fascia. We call it so because it also extends anteriorly on the muscle buccinator, on the outer surface of the buccinator. That's how we call it as buccopharyngeal fascia, which is on the outermost aspect of wall of the pharynx. Muscular coat we will deal in detail, and pharyngobasilar fascia is the one which fills wherever there is deficiency caused by the muscles, especially in the superior aspect where superior constrictor is deficient. It is filled by pharyngobasilar fascia. Let us look at in detail all the muscles of pharynx. First, constrictors of pharynx. As I have already told you, fibers run obliquely and circularly to the long axis of the pharynx. We are observing a diagrammatic representation of the pharynx from behind. We can observe here, this is the superior constrictor, this is middle constrictor, this is inferior constrictor of the left side, and this is of the right side. When seen from behind, their origin is on either side of the opening of nasal, oral and laryngeal cavities. So they are all meeting in the midline. This is midline raphe. If I cut this midline raphe and open it like a book, we will observe this view. So this is nasal cavity, this is oral cavity. We can see the soft palate and ula here. This is laryngeal inlet. These are taking origin from the sides of nasal cavity here, side of oral cavity here, and side of laryngeal inlet here, respectively superior, middle and inferior constrictors. They are coming to meet in the midline, which is midline raphe. So they are overlapping on one another. You can see here, middle constrictor on either sides, it's overlapping on the superior constrictor. Inferior constrictor is overlapping on the middle constrictor. The inferior constrictor has two parts. The upper part is obliquely running and this is the lower part which is horizontally running. So this is thyropharyngeus and this is cricopharyngeus. Posteriorly, they are all meeting in midline raphe. In the superior aspect, that is upper to the upper border of superior constrictor, there is a deficiency in the musculature. So this is filled by pharyngobasilar fascia, which is running from pharynx to base of the skull. Pharyngobasilar fascia fills this gap above the free upper border of superior constrictor. Pharyngobasilar fascia is also evidently seen in midline raphe where it is forming aponeurosis. These muscles running horizontally and obliquely, when they contract, they reduce the lumen of the pharynx. They are acting like constrictors. Let us observe how these muscles are taking origin. Superior, middle and inferior constrictors from which part of the skeletal system, and we will also see how this pharyngobasilar fascia is displaced on the inferior aspect of the base of the skull. This picture shows base of the skull. This red line shows the line of attachment of pharyngobasilar fascia. This is pharyngeal tubercle in front of the foramen magnum, and this is medial pterygoid plate, and pharyngobasilar fascia is deficient here to receive the communication of eustachian tube to the nasopharynx. This picture shows where superior, middle and inferior constrictors are taking origin. This is from one side. We can see here this is medial pterygoid plate, this is pterygoid hamulus, and this is pterygomandibular raphe. This is fibrous band running from pterygoid hamulus to medial side of the mandible. This is the origin for superior constrictor, pterygoid hamulus and posterior part of the pterygomandibular raphe. Remember, anterior part of the same raphe gives origin to buccinator. Middle constrictor is taking origin from lower part of the stylohyoid ligament. This is styloid process, this is stylohyoid ligament, this is lesser cornu of the hyoid bone, and this is greater cornu of the hyoid bone. The origin of middle constrictor is from the lower part of the stylohyoid ligament, lesser cornu of the hyoid bone, and also greater cornu of the hyoid bone. Inferior constrictor has its origin from oblique line on thyroid cartilage and also from cricoid cartilage on the lateral side of the cricoid cartilage. This has two parts. The one which is going from thyroid cartilage is thyropharyngeus, and one which is going from cricoid cartilage is cricopharyngeus. Thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus both are parts of inferior constrictor. This picture shows the muscular fibers, how they are running towards the back, and finally they are meeting in the midline with the opposite muscle which is coming from other side. Let us look at longitudinal muscles. These are muscles running longitudinally along the long axis of pharynx. One muscle we are observing here, that is stylopharyngeus, which is going from outside to inside into the pharyngeal wall, and it is going in between two constrictors, that is superior constrictor and middle constrictor. Stylopharyngeus enters the pharyngeal wall from outside to inside. It passes between superior and middle constrictor. Longitudinal folds of mucosa can be observed on the inner surface in the interior of the pharynx. We can see here, this is eustachian tube, and below the eustachian tube we can see there is a fold which is salpingopharyngeal fold, which is mentioned here. So this fold is because of underlying muscle, that is salpingopharyngeus muscle. That muscle elevates the mucosal fold to form this longitudinal fold. Just like that, we are observing one more fold from palate to pharynx, that is palatopharyngeal arch or palatopharyngeal fold, which was just behind the palatine tonsil. So these two are the muscles, salpingopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus. Action of these, all the three longitudinal muscles, is elevation of the pharyngeal wall. Just like lifting the gunny bag when you fill something in it. When you lift the gunny bag, the wall will be lifted and contents will be sinking down. In the same way, during swallowing, longitudinal muscles are elevating the pharyngeal wall. Motor nerve supply to the pharyngeal muscles is peculiar. One of the muscle in the pharynx is supplied by glossopharyngeal nerve, that is stylopharyngeus muscle. Developmentally also, this is from third arch. Third arch nerve is glossopharyngeal nerve. But all other muscles are supplied by vagoaccessory complex. Vagoaccessory complex can also be termed as cranial accessory nerve through vagus, or it can also be called as pharyngeal plexus. The blood supply to pharynx is from branches of external carotid artery, namely lingual artery, facial artery, ascending palatine artery or ascending pharyngeal artery, and descending branches of the maxillary artery. All these are supplying the wall of the pharynx. The venous drainage is into the pharyngeal plexus of veins, which is on the wall of the pharynx near the middle constrictor. Finally, vein drains into internal jugular vein. The lymphatic drainage is into upper and lower deep cervical group of lymph nodes and also through the retropharyngeal group of lymph nodes. Let me explain few clinical anatomical aspects in this slide. Tonsillitis, we have seen it along with tonsil, even quinsy. Retropharyngeal space infections, this we have seen it in deep cervical fascia. There is space behind the pharynx and in front of the prevertebral fascia. This space can be infected. Parapharyngeal space can be infected, which can go to Ludwig's angina. Nasogastric intubation, we will see it in a while. Endotracheal intubation also, and Killian's dehiscence. Nasogastric tube can be inserted through the nasal cavity into the nasopharynx, through the oropharynx, through the laryngopharynx, and to the esophagus till the gastrium. This is done to feed the patient whenever patient is unconscious or non-cooperative. Endotracheal intubation is intubating a tube into the trachea through the oral cavity, through the oropharynx, and observing the laryngeal inlet, lifting the tongue forward by laryngoscope and then passing the tube into trachea. This is done to pass the anesthetic gas and oxygen during general anesthesia. Killian's dehiscence. This picture shows inferior constrictor and its two parts. This is thyropharyngeus and this is cricopharyngeus, going away from thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage. So there is a gap between these two muscles. The asynchronous contraction of thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus can lead to herniation of mucous membrane outside. So whenever there is contraction of thyropharyngeus, the cricopharyngeus has to relax to leave the content down into the esophagus. But when cricopharyngeus doesn't relax, the pressure which builds up inside can outpouch the content with mucous membrane like this, and it can collect some foul smelling food material. This ends the class on palatine tonsil and muscles of the pharynx. Good luck.